Sounds good. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, make sure you're subscribed. 75% of my viewers are not subscribed to the channel, and we're really close now to 15k. So if you could subscribe, it would mean a lot. Now, you're here for something else, so grab a cup of tea, sit down, relax and strap in, because it's gonna get expensive. So in today's episode, we're gonna talk about, well, the ridiculous cost that it is for me to insure my BMW M240i. Now, there's a couple of things, well, there's several things you should know really to preface this. Obviously, if you've never seen one of my videos before, you might not know any of this. But what I should say first is, number one, and this, as you'll see, will turn out to be actually the biggest factor in this. Number one, I am currently living in a London postcode. Not central London, but the outskirts, but within Greater London. Number two, I'm only 23 years old. And yeah, I mean, you know, it's relatively young still, and does affect insurance costs at this age. So let me first sort of explain the situation, and I will, of course, in the video, give you the exact price of what I'm paying for my car insurance for this M240i. I'll probably put a time code down below or along the scroll bar, just in case you do, for whatever reason, just want to skip straight to exactly what I'm paying, because I wouldn't want to make you have to watch through the video to find out. So about a couple of weeks ago now, I've moved to the London area. This is actually a move with my parents. I am living with my parents, and unfortunately I've been recently made redundant, meaning that this is actually my only source of income currently. And so continuing to live with my parents in this place they've just relocated to obviously saves me money when it comes to things like rent. I'm obviously extremely fortunate to have the option to do so, and my parents are fantastic for letting me do that. So that's the reason essentially for the move to London. I personally wouldn't have chosen to do it if it was up to me, but it isn't up to me, and beggars can't be choosers. So it was always apparent to me that the cost of insurance with the move to the London area was going to increase. Where we were living before in Hampshire, about 40 minutes south of London, the insurance prices we were paying weren't too bad. And I say we, I had been on my family policy, which is my father and my mother. The three cars, I think, or now four, including this M240i on the policy. I always expected the insurance premium to increase with the move to London, just because there are potentially more claims, more accidents, more incidents in this area, partly because of levels of crime, but partly just because of the density of people and therefore the density of cars. However, what I did not expect is that Admiral, our insurance company, they simply would not insure all of our four cars, my M240i, my Z4, my dad's Z4 and my mum's Skoda. They would simply not insure all four of them in the postcode we'd moved to, because for them it said that it exceeded their maximum limit, or their sort of, I guess, maximum value of assets, of cars to insure in that postcode. Now, I don't know the exact reasons for this, but again, I guess it comes down to what I just mentioned about just the rate of claims they receive, and therefore there's a cap on this area. So obviously that was a bit of a problem, and we obviously tried to negotiate to no avail, saw what it would be to take my cars off the policy, but basically Admiral just wouldn't do it, so it left me looking elsewhere. The first thing I did, in fact, was an online quote for the M240i on its own, and when I popped in the postcode of where I'm now living, the cost for the yearly insurance, not even monthly paid, just paid in one-off, so basically it makes it a little bit cheaper, was £7,100. Now, that is obviously a monumental cost for anything, but for car insurance on a car that's worth, well, a bit more than 3 times that, car insurance on anything, let alone what this car's worth, is preposterous. It simply was not an option, and I was shopping around a little bit, doing lots of online quotes, made a few phone calls here and there. The phone calls normally resulted in sorry, we can't do it, and the online quotes resulted in numbers far north of £5,000. So at this point in time, obviously seeing these numbers everywhere I looked, I honestly thought I'm going to have to sell the M240i. Like, plain and simple, I cannot justify paying that. I mean, for a starter, that would have been on a credit card. I can't afford to pay that. And the amount of revenue that essentially I generate from this car, it is a business asset for me. It's just, you know, not an option. 700 or 7 grand a year equates to roughly just under £600 a month. I'm not generating that sort of money from this car, and of course I'm paying for the car in itself amongst modifications and other things. So I'm sure it goes without saying, from a financial standpoint, but also a business perspective, just not an option. So literally at that time, 2 weeks after picking this car up, and obviously being very excited, planning lots of content for it, putting a lot of eggs into the basket of this car, I thought I was going to be forced into a position where I'd have to sell it. And that was obviously a really stressful and frustrating time. And if you follow me on Instagram, or you were at the time, you would have seen I was really stressed out about it and asking for lots of help and advice from you guys. And actually many of you came through. A special shout out to Zach's Garage, Zach, my friend, who attempted to hook me up actually with someone that he knew. And I didn't actually in the end take him up on that because I had found something else. But just lots of people really came out to help and offer me advice, and brokers and company names that I never heard of, and some of which were helpful. So I was really in a bit of a panic, thinking about selling the M240i, because simply wherever I looked, I just couldn't find anyone that would either insure the car at all or for a price that I could even justify. However, thanks to the help of everyone, I did eventually stumble across a company who seemed to, well, just have a slightly better website than everyone else, which makes things a lot easier when you're changing lots of options, as we'll go into, but also just came out a bit cheaper. I think they came out at around 5 grand for both of my cars, which, to be honest, at this point already felt really nice to see something around 5 grand, because everything else had been so drastically more than that. However, this is where it gets really interesting, because of course with insurance there's so many factors that go into it, address obviously just being one of them, and seemingly quite an important one, your age, your driving history, etc, etc. But there's other things like even your level of cover, comprehensive, third party fire and theft, the amount of mileage you do, where the cars are left overnight, that can make a ridiculous difference to your insurance costs, and in ways that you might not imagine. So get this, it was at about £5,000. I was insuring both of my cars for about 4,000 miles per year on a business basis, and I just decided I would try and increase it to 10,000 miles per year. Now what that did was unexpected. It brought the cost of the insurance down by £1,000 overall, about £800 on this car, £200 on my other car, which is ridiculous. By increasing my annual mileage by a factor of 60% per car, well, actually more than that, no, about 120% per car, from 4,000 to 10,000, it brought the insurance cost down £1 grand, which makes absolutely no sense. Also, changing where my car is parked overnight made a massive difference. So I changed it from driveway to residential parking area, because actually the driveway that I'm at now is actually a shared sort of car park, if you like. So changed that to residential driving area, and that brought the cost down by about 300 quid as well. Now this mixed in with a number of other tweaks. I'm trying to think of my top tips here, but I did add people in my family onto my policy, which brought the cost down further, amongst a number of other things. But you know, increasing the mileage, why did that decrease it? I don't know. But amongst a few other things, I finally got the cost of insurance for this car down to about £2,800, which obviously is still a lot of money and a far cry from what I was paying before. Beforehand, this car was costing me about 1,100 quid to insure, and I say that as if it was costing me that for a while. Well, I'd only just bought the car and insured it for a couple of weeks at the old address, but it was 1,100 quid there for the year. So we're almost talking triple the cost of insurance for the convenience of living in a London postcode, which is something that took me back, and obviously it's something that is costing me dearly right now. But it was a number that I could just about justify keeping this car for. out of interest, I was looking at buying a Maserati Gran Turismo instead of this car, and it's still something I'd quite like to do. And the crazy thing is that Maserati Gran Turismo, which is worth roughly the same, would have cost me 1,300 quid to insure, so more than half, or less than half, of what I'm paying for this, which just seems nonsensical, doesn't it? So, if you're interested as well, £2,800 for this and about 700 for my Z4, so I'm paying about 3.5 grand now for the year to insure both of my cars where I'm living in the London area. Now, of course, there's a number of things I could have done, such as just lie about where I'm living and insure the cars to an old address. For example, one of my old addresses in a place called Haslemere, about an hour outside of London in Surrey. If I'd insured both the cars there, it would have cost me 800 quid. So, you know, it's very tempting to just insure them for somewhere like that. But quite simply, I guess if I ever had to make a claim and something did go wrong, my fault or not, the company most likely would not pay out, or they'd make it a lot easier for them to find a way not to pay out. And, you know, I'd be in an even worse situation then if I had to foot the bill for something. Things like modifications and stuff, I've been totally honest with the company. They're called Diamond, if anyone's interested. They were fine with that. I've also not been paid or sponsored to say this. As you can tell, I'm paying 3.5 grand for my insurance, so this is definitely not sponsored. If anyone at Diamond is watching and wants to give me, throw me a bone, please do. But yeah, that is essentially, I mean, that's the insane cost of insurance I'm paying for my M240i at the age of 23. But I'm paying the price because I live in London. I don't want this to deter anyone young looking to buy one of these cars, because depending on where you live, essentially, you can insure them reasonably. I should also mention I've got actually 6 points on my licence for speeding, which is very unfortunate, and I do have 6 years no claims. I've never made an insurance claim, which probably helps as well as having 2 cars, a few extra name drivers on my policy, and that's about it. But do tweak, if you're in a sticky situation with insurance, tweak everything you can. Tweak exactly where the car's parked, tweak your mileage and what the mileage is for. If you're actually looking to insure third party, you might find, in my case it was the case, it's cheaper to insure comprehensively, which makes no sense, but seems to be the way often, and has always been the way with my insurance quotes. And yeah, insurance in this country is just a funny thing. There's not really any sense to it. Certainly hasn't been any sense to it with this car. And look, I'm just happy that I have got the car insured for a price that didn't completely break the bank, but don't get me wrong, it's still a price I'm not happy about paying. And well, it's the reason I'm churning videos like this, because I've got to pay for that one way or another. So guys, I hope you found that video interesting. I'm not hiding any numbers from you. That is genuinely the cost. I did think at one point it was going to be game over before it even started for this car, but thank God that's not the case, and therefore there's a lot of exciting videos coming with this car, one of which I'm actually on my way to film right now. So hope you found that video interesting. Make sure you're subscribed, as I said at the start, if you're not already. It really helps by subscribing. It really helps the channel. Give this video a thumbs up as well, it helps more people to see it, and comment below your thoughts on my situation. It's a decision that, it wasn't made lightly, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well. Anyway, thanks so much guys for watching, and I'll see you very, very soon.